So, I don't even like doing intros. So I'm gonna get straight into it. Brighton, Hove, Albion. I saw a tweet, and I just hands up if you agree with it. Brighton's everyone's favorite second team.
Nah, they're rivals to me now.
Okay, I'm putting my hand up. I enjoy watching them that much.
Mine is generally Fulham.
You can't.
I hear it.
When Solly March is packing in Onana, you're not going to say that.
No, listen. And I'm going to say this. I started supporting United at 5, right? God's honest truth, I love football equally as much as I love
I hear it.
Manchester United.
Yeah, I'm a football fan.
So, even if he is, yes, I'll be annoyed, but I'm still loving the football they're playing. Right. I think what they're doing and what De Zerbi's been able to do, and I mean, Caicedo goes out, big player for them, doesn't miss a beat, same stuff, same shit. They're just playing football.
They're a hipster team.
I hear it.
Hipster team. It's like when Sociedad went through that period where they had that Griezmann and all them lot.
Yeah. Or even Monaco with what's it, Lamar and Mbappe and all those guys.
Period,
yeah.
It's a hipster team.
Yeah.
They're nice, but
so you're saying it's not sustainable at all?
People won't care in 5 years.
Well, it depends what they're doing in 5 years.
Well, yeah, that's even unfair to say.
Yeah.
Do you think that? Do you know what? That's even the question. Like, I know we're going to talk about them now, but do you think even in the next 5? You know, we'll come to that. Let's talk about.
Well, no, I'm answering the question. With no head loss, there's no reason why they can't get further up the table with the football. Well, this is what I'm going into, and that's what,
because effectively they will be gutted every season.
But this is what I'm saying about head loss, because I think, not to shit on Spurs, but I think Spurs had head loss, and that's why Pochettino ended up losing his job. I think there's a level of this where you get to the Champions League final, and then obviously Spurs have been on a new stadium, blah, might not be that many transfers, but you don't sack him for not having a good season at that point, because you weren't supposed to be there in the first place. So I think without head loss, Brighton could, with De Zerbi.
For me, because I think for me the thing with Brighton is, how long do you realistically expect them to keep unearthing gems? So don't get me, I think Brighton are very well run, but De Zerbi, unearthed. And the way, obviously we know the way they operate, they always have a replacement ready. They don't stop anyone from moving, blah 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 blah. Cool, we get that, but how it's not especially with how vast football is, it's not a given that every player that they get in is gonna hit the ground running or buy into the system, because every transfer is effectively a gamble. At a certain point, they're going to be, for example, we're already talking about Ferguson leaving. He hasn't played a full season up front for them. Ferguson's going. Pascal Gross eventually has to go. Milner is of age. Milana's of age. Welbeck's of age. These men are all of age. Dunk is 30. Mitoma will go. De Zerbi will go. So what? Are they going to keep bringing out a new Mitoma, a new De Zerbi? It's at some point they are going to catch up with themselves and stop.
You say that, but I think what Bloom is doing very well is that he's making sure he's getting what's his. Get me? I mean, you know what I mean by that? He's making sure that I get my P's.
Yeah.
For the fact that you've even got a sell-on clause on Caicedo is even
it's quite. But Leicester did the same thing at a point, though, didn't they?
Honestly, that is a very good example.
It is, but Leicester was less sustainable though.
No, where Leicester went wrong was Leicester, it caught up with them. Yes, they had a one this season and all that, but all the experience went. The good players got gutted, and they said, you know what, we're just gonna just buy.
I'll spell out.
There you go.
Hold on. I'm gonna spell out the difference. Though. Two things. What you just pointed out, which was buying players that obviously didn't work out, but manager. I think for Leicester, Ranieri's season with no cups and all that type of stuff, and you win the Prem. Cool. The following season, they didn't win the FA Cup. It was with Brendan, right? So
they had Puel for they had
Puel for a period of time. They deviated, and then they came back with the FA Cup. So my argument would be at Brighton, as you said, Bloom is getting his money. So if you're selling Caicedo at 115 million,
100 mil now.
No. But they're not shopping in that.
But that's what I'm saying to you. So the gems you're going to go and buy, you're not coming to I don't know, Sporting Lisbon, that's why they're struggling to buy Caicedo's replacement. No, they've gone to Lille and said, yo, we got 30 mil for your man, and they're saying, brother, we just heard you got 115 mil. Where are you going with that?
Listen, that might be for a time, but
it's gonna die down.
But my point is, it has to catch up, because you're going to effectively sign that player, right? And you're gonna eventually you're going to overpay.
But if Mitoma continues at this trajectory, that's another at least 70 to 80 million pound player.
When you buy the next Mitoma, what happens?
But that's not gonna. But I'm not gonna say it's not gonna happen. What I'm gonna say is that it's not gonna happen every time. So Caicedo could have went to United for 4 million, 5 million, right? We passed up. He's going to Brighton. Now they've turn 5 million into 115 and sell on clauses, you said, right? So I'd imagine that if they were to go in the same close to the market and say, we want to get, there's a, I think his name's Andre, he plays for Fluminense, I think it is.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people floating around him for like 30 million, right? And he's a young Brazilian player. What stops him from
Shall I give you the
throwing
best
30 million on
example
the
of
table?
why I say what I'm saying, actually?
Yeah.
Because now that I think about it, I understand why it might sound a bit off-key what I'm saying, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, my favourite example is Arsenal. Arsenal came in with Wenger, they were ahead of the curve, they were buying these little gems,
Mm-hmm.
picked up another 500k, shit on for 22 million. It caught up with us because what happens is people cotton on. Football, everyone's network is vast now. So, for example, United knew about Caicedo, he could have signed him for 3 mil. Brighton took the leap
Took
or whatever,
plunge, yeah.
and it worked out. Cool. Eventually, every man is just gonna say, hey, what's their man do?
Yeah, the Premier League's got money, you better spend it. Yeah.
Hey, what they're looking at?
Especially
They're
with
looking
Todd
at, bro. You're looking at Medi, bro. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Slap 10 on that. But now
I don't
you're
think
competing in circles that
sorry.
they didn't need to compete with before, and eventually these clubs that are gonna look at what Brighton are doing, they're gonna look to emulate that, and they're gonna have to they're gonna have to compete. And as the competition goes up, your shopping basket gets more expensive.
It does, but they've ensured that they've got the money.
But what I'm
to
saying
do
to you is
it.
it's gonna stop at a point.
What he's effectively saying
It
is
has to
that
stop.
other teams who you're trying to buy from are going to start overpricing their players when you come for them.
It's true.
Because they know you're getting a lot of
And
resale
remember,
value.
football is cyclic.
Yeah.
So all of what you're doing is going to work up to a certain point.
Yeah.
There is going to be a point where the transfer goes wrong, or the football doesn't quite work, or something goes off key. How they navigate out of that is different. And Brighton, what they're doing now, cool. They're building their coffers effectively, and that's going to help to serve them in the future. But it's the same thing with Leicester. You go into situations, you're overpriced, and now you're struggling because you've got man on contracts and this and that you can't shift, and you're like, whoa, we're broke. We have to get rid of certain man. Maybe you're making transfers at a loss now. I mean, Harvey Barnes went for what, 40 mil? Do you really think he's a 40 mil player?
No.
If he was at Brighton, he's going to cost 70. But Leicester in a position where they have to sell. Do you get what I'm saying? It's the same thing with Tielemans. He's gone for free. It's like eventually it's caught up with them. Do you know what I mean? And the buck has to stop somewhere.
But I think that's quality of manager. Sorry. I think that's quality of manager and
forward planning.
transfers.
It's forward planning.
Yeah.
Brighton can do it. However, how long it lasts, I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say, because
Okay.
you can say that to a point, but if they've got a sustainable model, which so far they've proved that they have, because they're just churning out players each time, it seems like they have a plan. If this person goes, this is who we're going to replace them. If this person goes, and you keep that going, and you're constantly identifying new players and new talent, why can that not carry on?
I think-
Especially if you're selling at a premium.
But
I think
it's
we've
just
different.
sold us 4 million
But
midfielder
you
for
just- but
140.
No, but I
the
think-
point I'm
we'll-
making as well,
yeah.
it's different when you're 15th in that and you're not expected to go anywhere. You can take a gamble on a 2.5 mil player. But when you're saying you're in Europe and you're competing with this and you're competing,
The price is going up.
Your basket's heavy.
bricks
You can't
going up,
afford
yeah.
to put a 4 million man in midfield and say, yeah, we just took a chance.
You know, I
on
think
that.
then they transform, because you're now a club of a new ilk. So why would
No,
you not now go to...
but here's the problem now.
Now you're shopping in Arsenal.
He's right. Now you're shopping in United
Now you're
and
shopping
Arsenal,
in them man
Chelsea's.
circles.
No, not necessarily, because if they're gonna say, all right, our level is Europa League,
But it's
yeah,
okay.
No, if they're
Yeah,
gonna
no,
say
no,
that
no,
our
you're
level is
right,
Europa
yeah.
League, that's the basket they're gonna be shopping in.
Right.
So even if they're going for people that play for Victoria, or people that play for Sporting Lisbon and whatever, that may not necessarily make it into United's team, or may not necessarily make it into Arsenal's team, but
it's already-
they're getting the fullback. You know when you talk about the fullback?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say on camera, but the fullback.
Yeah.
Do you get me? They're still,
But it's
getting
already,
players.
but it's already happening though, because you got to look at it. I do agree with slightly with what Courtney's saying. It's already happening because United were looking at Caicedo. So you're already kind of the world of football. When you're in the Premier League, you're already shopping where most guys are looking anyway.
Yeah, everyone's looking.
But
The
what I
difference is
will
you
say,
can afford to take the gamble.
right? So I remember I was having a debate with somebody before, and they were like, "Oh yeah, but why wouldn't we buy Caicedo?" I said, "Because United are not going to take a £5 million gamble, whereas though Brighton can afford for that player not to work out and it's not be a big deal. Whereas though United are going to look at it, and even if United looked at it from the perspective of, oh, it's only £5 million, we have all this money, they're still going to look at it as like, if it doesn't work, we're going to get killed for this transfer.
Not even that. It's just it's development.
Yeah.
Sambi Lukonga is a good example of Arsenal. 15 mil gamble. We're looking. A lot of Arsenal fans don't like him.
Yeah.
Arsenal can't afford to give him the minutes he needs to develop, so we're putting him on loan here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
Brighton, however, could buy him, slot him into their midfield, play him for a season, and if he doesn't work out, big whoop, they'll probably get the 50 mil back.
Yeah.
They can afford that gamble because they're not playing for any big prizes like that.
Yeah.
They're just playing to stay in the league,
Yeah.
effectively.
And they've
But when you start
exceeded-
competing
Yeah.
and you start going into Europe and you're going into to the top battles and you're going up against Arsenal, man, I'm saying, boy, you're 3-1 to win. the stakes are different. You can't now afford to say, "Oh, we just got this little brother from
Ecuador or whatever." Yeah,
Belo Horizonte. We're gonna slap him in and expect a result.
But
it's
I
different.
think we underestimate. Not to say that everybody's not doing the same stuff and in the same like have their scouts in the same regions and things like that. But I think we underestimate the power of scouting because there's always the next great footballers around the corner.
It's who gets there first.
But they're saying back in the day, bro.
Exactly.
It's who gets there first.
It's still, and I understand that everyone knows of everybody, essentially, potentially. But
Tell United that.
No, but for real, you can go on FM now and scout 10 man that are
poor.
actually good in real life.
everybody knows.
Everybody knows about them.
Yeah,
But it's not everybody's not always going to take the punt.
That's what we're saying.
that's what we're saying. But I agree on both sides. I'm just so to agree with you. You're right because you go back to the Brighton and United situation with Caicedo. I just think that what Courtney is saying, not even think. I know what Courtney is saying is they can afford to take the risk, and where the bigger and where it works on your end is that works for Brighton. Whereas though, at what point do they get to a point where they can no longer afford to take the risk?
Right, so
and does that start the downfall because De Zerbi might overachieve, and then because he overachieves, they now turn around and say, all right, cool, next season we expect you to do it again, and he can't do that and he gets sacked.
All right, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question before you get in that. Let's look at Newcastle.
I don't think that works long term either.
No, but you know,
not to say
when I was talking about the fullback or the fullback or the second
Yeah.
everyone knew about Ishak and said 60 million is too much.
Different.
Why?
No.
Why?
Yeah, all right, because his last league season was mad. It was
Right.
Yeah.
But Brighton might say, all right, cool. We know he's on
But
the
point that we're
we could
making.
develop him.
But that's the point we're making.
And then
It's not-
that's
it's
chance.
not different, I'm saying.
No, but hear me out.
But they're taking
That's
chance now.
No, but hear me out. That is because a lot of people don't believe in luck and things of that nature. But Ishak wasn't that guy before that season, right? So effectively, we would say Newcastle got fleeced if it wasn't working out the way it's working out now, right? So and then what you would do is you would destroy their ownership model because they've been fleeced that way.
The best example, bro, that you could bring up is Joe Linton.
Yeah.
If Joe Linton doesn't go into midfield and work out,
They've been
we're
fleeced.
saying that's a 40 mil dud.
Yeah.
Do you get it? Newcastle, until of recent, didn't have 40 mil dud money.
Yeah.
Do you get it? If
Now they do.
Arsenal, what's the word that I'm looking for? By their nature, or as we come to learn Arsenal, they were quite rigid with their spending. They never broke and spent big fees. So Arsenal going by Ishak, who as their marquee signing, or like with Pepe, while we get slandered, marquee signing 72 million, he's a dud. You're stuck with that. Arsenal can't afford to throw 72 million on a player and throw it away. Do you get it?
Yeah.
And you brought Newcastle, which is a good example. Newcastle succeeded by getting into the top 6. They had to go and buy a 70 million pound midfielder.
Yeah.
They can't go and buy
You know what it is as well.
for 40 mil.
You know what it is? It's also welcome to the table.
That's what's going on.
Because 70 million pounds, they weren't going to get him for any cheaper than that.
And that's a player that arguably you would have said could go
Go
into
to
any
Chelsea,
top 6
United,
sides.
Arsenal.
But that's what I'm saying. None of them. That's what I'm saying. But the point I'm making is that
No, but it's
you're
the 70
right.
mil. It's the 70 mil.
You're right, but none of the top clubs bought him.
No, but
so then
but-
Brighton could turn around and say, all right, cool. We may not be at the level to compete with City, United, Arsenal, or whatever the case may be. But we're gonna get the fullbacks.
Okay, but
So if
this
no one's going for Tonali, we're gonna grab.
But the reason I want for Tonali is because they've gone for 100 million pounds. So United have gone. Arsenal. Sorry,
Oh, Rice, yeah.
United, Casemiro, 80 mil.
Yeah.
Arsenal, Rice, 150 mil. City went and bought Rodri and all them other guys.
Yeah.
Chelsea went and bought 2 different £100 million.
Enzo,
Do you get it? So as much as there are fullbacks,
Tonali was the leftover.
but 70
He wasn't the
million
leftover.
is
And
money.
then forget-
But 70 million is money Newcastle can spend because they're already better than Brentford or West Ham,
And they
or
can't spend what the other clubs are
But so they can afford to. They can spend 70 mil, and that's maybe the mid tier or whatever. Or because Arsenal or whoever has seen better value in the market, saying we could buy 70 mil on Tonali, but if he doesn't work out, we're fucked. Whereas if we spend 100 mil on Rice, that's guaranteed.
Brighton could go and spend 50 million on Balogun. It might work out.
They could, but then if it doesn't work out,
Now what?
They're not where are they getting 50 million from to buy another striker again?
It's alright, man. Caicedo went from bare money.
Nah, you can't work like so.
Don't work like
Damien,
that. Don't work like that.
so Damien, I'll ask you this. Obviously, Brighton are scaling the heights right now. Do you see that head loss moment?
I think with Brighton is that I don't think they actually want to move from the position they are right now. And I totally agree with you about taking the risk. If any of the top 6 clubs bought Caicedo, he's not starting. He's not in their first team plan.
Not straight away, at least.
He's going into the under 21. He's going into a
Oh, you mean
he might get sent on loan.
You mean
He might be sent on loan. He might be sent
Before.
before what you see at Brighton. So Brighton now has a model of I can buy for cheap, sell for a very high price. Why would you want to move from that now? You cannot do that at the top level. There is no way. There's no way any of the top 6 clubs are doing it, because if you produce a player,
It's the Harry Maguire thing.
Exactly.
80 million, but now you got to ship him for 30. Yeah.
So you won't get a chance as a top 6 team to sell him because he's going to stay in the team. That's what you want. But Brighton has a chance of, now they've got Mitoma, who's probably the next
Big price player, yeah.
All they have to do is
Evan
get another player
Ferguson.
to sell him, and then like you said, keep stacking up that money. Have you seen them reinvest that money for someone to at least take them further?
But to Kel's argument, how long can you do that for before?
All they have to do is sustain where they are right now.
All right.
No, but how long can you sustain that model?
This is what I'm saying.
You could
Because I agree with you. Brighton are thinking, we're Brighton. We don't have to be competing for the Premier League.
100%.
We can coach here at 7. And you know what? If we finish 8th for the next 10 seasons, that's a win.
Yeah, no,
we're
100%.
not supposed to be here.
Yeah, 100%.
But the problem with that is, it's 2 things. One, people are already looking at players to take off them this season. The reason those people are looking at them is because Brighton have had the time to develop them. They've taken a punt on these players for cheap. They've had time to develop them. And Ciso, they bought. Bruno, they bought. They didn't go straight into the team. They got time to develop. They got time to get comfortable. At a point, obviously it's supply and demand, isn't it?
Yeah.
The demand is going to eventually probably be greater than the supply at a certain point. When that happens, it's stick or twist for Brighton. And that's where it gets sticky, because I feel like,
how long until other teams enter your market?
How long are these going to keep working for you before you have to go upstairs?
Or even Vincent Kompany, for instance, at Burnley.
Right.
How long until Burnley start looking at things like that and saying,
so you have to buy £50 million midfielders, then £60 million midfielders, and then you can't really just shift them and make profits. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So
but then that's when the model has to change. You're right, obviously, and that's when they evolve as a club.
But
So
then
they have to be a
but
plan.
that's a head loss moment, is what I'm saying.
does it happen and they make the right decision and make that step, or does we see what happened to Leicester? Leicester hit Champions League and bought Islam Slimani, Rashid Jazal, Nampalys Mendy. I would give you £10 if you tell me where any players are right now.
and I think to that point is sorry Damien, like just to that point, you got to think, if they did start to scale the heights, that head loss moment gets closer and closer and closer and closer, because at what point are you going to say, all right, cool, De Zerbi is like, he's the best man, one of the best managers in the Prem, even though I would say he's there now, but same thing happened to Spurs. You get to a final, and then you sack your manager because the following season's not going as well. And then it's like, yeah, but you weren't supposed to be there in the first place, so you should give him time to then rebuild this squad that he built in the first place. I'm not saying Bloom is going to sack De Zerbi. Obviously, he'd be silly to do so. But if they start overachieving, and then he's like, I'm liking the top 6 feeling, let's say, for argument's sake,
and
then
sacked.
you don't get there.
Not even sacked, he gets poached. It happens to Poch.
And I think by that time where they sacked Poch, Tottenham had missed that boat, because for me they should have been investing, because obviously the same way we're talking about Brighton, Tottenham was in that same boat where it's head loss, buy for a smaller fee and see
Ship them off later down the line.
Sell them on later. So I felt like in that 2015-16 season is where we started putting money in to try and improve players.
But then I would say to you,
in the same vein.
But you know what I say to you? Sorry, Kels. You know what I say to you? It's either players or stadium.
Sorry.
No. I'm
That's
like,
the way you dropped it, sorry.
Yeah, like, because we're not talking about Spurs, but I'm just saying, like, in the sense I can see if, like, you ask Poch, because managers are not going to care about the bigger agenda. They're caring about winning games. So if you ask Poch, if you ask Ten Hag right now, players are build Old Trafford all over again, he's going to say players. He's not going to care about Old Trafford. And not because he doesn't care about Old Trafford, it's just, I need to win now, and I'd rather have this now. And I think if you ask Arsenal that question when they move to the Emirates, stay here at Highbury and get better players in, and to replace the old guard, or move to the Emirates, they're going to say players. Well, Wenger would have said players. So I think...
No, but he didn't, though.
No. I'm using it as an example. I know that he specifically was like... I think he specifically wanted the move because he understood the bigger picture. Yeah. But a lot of managers aren't looking at their club that way.
I think the difference with what you're talking about here is that this is where it gets into size of club.
Yeah.
And for Arsenal to make that jump into a continental force, they had to get to a bigger stadium. There's a reason why Chelsea are banging down doors to develop Stamford Bridge.
So
because
when
to make
do
that
Brighton
jump to be
get
a
there?
revenue monster like United, you have to be in a bigger yard.
But when do Brighton... So that's why I'm asking you guys. Where's the head loss moment? If we're because I want to plot The
There's too many
upside and the
variables.
downfall.
There's too many variables for Brighton.
Okay.
I think for me is that I think that boat has already sailed, because they've sold off basically a key midfield with Caicedo, which is something you kind of built on McAllister and Trossard,
yeah.
Sorry, I think those three players were just so key for them, and obviously they're still getting results. But we'll see how that goes for the season because definitely is a style of play carrying and Brighton.
Bro.
But I feel like they should. Sorry, 1 minute. Yeah, I feel like they should have been improving, taking that money that they got from Cucurella, that money they got from basically.
another one.
Cucurella.
Here's a crook. Here's a crook. Here's a crook.
I like that.
Here's a crook. And Chelsea got bent over backwards. Here's a crook. Big up Chilwell.
Let me say something.
No, okay,
go on. No, sorry.
No, I'm just saying that's when they should have been built in on getting a top-notch striker.
Okay.
To try and get them their goals, but I feel like that boat has already sailed.
How much is Balogun for?
50 mil.
Jesus.
No, don't say
And
50.
10%
No,
for his
I'm not
money.
disagreeing. I'm just saying, damn, like they can't even really get in.
For me, they can. Let's not act
don't
like
need
Brighton
to
not having the
buy.
money.
No, but by their budget, they're not going to spend
Brighton
that.
don't need to buy Balogun.
Yeah.
They've got Ferguson coaching. They don't need to.
Exactly. And to that point, which I was going to end on, do you know how much man that they've lost?
And they're
I was gonna
still
say
doing
that.
this.
You can't call them key players.
They weren't key at all.
They missed the
Do you know how much guys they've lost?
They haven't missed a beat.
There's about 8 or 9 man. It's not even going back to just Cucurella. Let's start even Ben White.
Go before that.
Yeah.
Go before that.
They've lost bare guys.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Like, even if it was like temporary, like, all right, they tried to get Colwell back. They couldn't. They lost their Ben White. They lost Trossard, as you said, Basuma, Mwepu had to retire. McAllister.
Oh, yes.
Trossard.
Trossard, yeah.
Lamptey don't even play anymore.
Caicedo's not going.
Like, they've replaced that midfield engine room a couple of times.
So let's just question them.
That's why.
They're in the Europa League, right?
Yeah.
They win the Europa League this year. They win the Europa League.
They do.
No. I'm saying
Yeah,
it
okay.
happened.
Okay, yeah.
They win the Europa League. Is that the head loss moment now? Because Europa League puts you in the Champions League.
It could be both because players might have to say, actually, I want to be in the Champions League with Brighton.
No, I'm not talking about players leaving.
No,
I'm
but
saying
you're
for the
saying,
ownership.
what do they
Because
do?
now, if you win the Europa League, you go into the Champions
Got
League,
different
right?
expectations.
Huh?
They get different expectations.
Yeah, so
And
they
have
have
different
different
expectations.
We can't
players.
talk on what Bloom's going to want, on what Bloom's going to say.
Yeah, it's too many variables. That's what I said.
You can't. It's impossible to think that Bloom might be like, do you know what? We're here for the ride. We'll carry on doing what we're doing, but let's see how this goes. You never know.
Okay.
I think what we can look
I just think winning the cup will change
I
expectations.
think what we can look to at the moment is they have a plan. You know that works. For example, McAllister's replacement was there from before he went.
Yeah.
Enciso, and
Enciso.
we were saying, what's Enciso got to do to start? He's there now. He's the man.
Yeah.
Like, we just got to see.
Where's Jeremy Sacre?
Sarmiento, he's on loan. But there you go.
I think
If they lose another one, he slots right back into the team.
I just want to. The reason why I'm asking and I'm being persistent about it is because we've seen teams. You guys highlight Leicester, I highlighted Spurs, so on and so forth. It's the same boat as you said. I just think that if you were to go and win the Europa League, the expectation is going to rise. Not necessarily from the fans, but the ownership might think, well, we're getting this much out with less input, if that makes sense. What will we get if we? Because now it becomes, do you now buy? Like we said, do you buy in the upper echelon now to compete?
But Brighton's plan might already be. We don't know. It could be already like 3 or 4 years in
Oh
the
no,
motions.
of course it is. It already is. It already is.
Sorry, you know, you both just did something that. Do you know we've slightly seen an element of Brighton's story already with Southampton? Do you realise that?
Okay.
We've slightly already seen this. When Southampton came with Adkins and they had Shaw,
Yes.
Schneidlin,
Yeah.
Wanyama, Van Dijk, all of these guys,
Van Dijk,
we've
Mane,
seen it. We've seen the way it's gone. So, like I'm saying, and no one cares about Southampton now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Like we've seen this story already to a degree. Obviously, no, for real, bro. Even Pochettino was at Southampton. That's how he got
I
his
agree
Spurs
to a
move.
certain extent, but I think.
So do you, wait, sorry.
But
So
the
do you
difference
think?
is
Do you,
same
so,
boat.
so, wait, so do
Southampton
you
was
think
as smart as Brighton?
So do you think that's the same thing in the sense of that's how Brighton can go because expectation gets risen and players get bought that maybe managers don't want and X, Y, and Z.
Not even just that. Like I said, at some point the demand is going to exceed the supply.
Yeah.
So when you've got a replace man, when you can plan ahead in the way that Brighton do, you can kind of circumvent problems. But also, when 7 of your first team's been bought, no matter how much planning you do, you're not able to buy 7 ready-made replacements or 7 man that are going to slot in and
What you're
allow you to
saying,
maintain.
I hear that, but you don't realize. Well, you obviously realize that Brighton have already bought some of these man.
But
They've
that
already
doesn't
got
mean
these
they're
man.
ready to
They've
play,
already
though.
bought these man.
Stockpile.
And then sent them on loan to say, because remember, before McAllister was even playing for Brighton, they sent man on loan to say, all right, you know what? This is the long-term plan for if Mwepu goes, if Basuma goes, whatever, these men are going to slot in. They've already bought the man them that they think is going to slot in, just in case. They've got Matoma replacement. Don't ever think they don't have Matoma replacement.
But in the same breath, they've also got stopgaps. Milner's not there because he was going to replace Caicedo.
Yeah.
He's just a stopgap that's happened, and they've taken
Until
an
they can
opportunity.
unearth the next
And
thing.
they've taken an opportunity. And like I'm saying to you, the demand is eventually going to exceed the supply because that Milner up stopgap might not be there. Pascal Gross is going to have to retire at some point. When both those problems come at the same time, I'm Jamaican. We say, what are we, bum, bum, bum? Yeah. When the 2 seconds clash, that means, yo, when things shake up, what are you going to do, my guy?
Yeah.
And things will shake up.
I have no reason to believe that Brighton do not have a plan in motion.
Every club will have 5 years.
Having a plan and having the opportunity are not the same thing.
100%, no, 100%, but I think they're ahead of the curve when it comes to. It's right. They haven't just identified the players that they want. They've already bought them.
But that's for now. That's for now. That's what I said 5
I don't
years.
think that's sustainable.
That's the 5-year plan. That's the 5
Even-
What
even if-
Courtney's
even
saying
if-
is,
well-
after that 5 years, because you're not playing in 10 years, after this 5 years of those players coming in and other players getting sold for big prices, then the demand for those type of like unearthing those gems again might not be there because you might have exceeded expectations by becoming a bigger club, and you're shopping in a different place, and teams are going to realize you're getting big money for these other players, so they're going to be like, well, now I
You
want
might
this.
not have that bread.
Yeah. So I do get that. I'm not saying it won't change
It could
within
go
2
both
years.
ways, though. It could go both ways. It could go both ways, though.
Yeah, but what you're talking about is basically Brighton having a 5-year plan of selling players and replacing them. 5-year plan of selling and replacing. In that term, you kind of think that far ahead of just constantly selling and buying players. And that's why I don't believe that's sustainable. They'll have to get to a point where you need a solid foundation for you to start growing. And if they decide to start plateauing, they will only just fall. And Southampton was a perfect example. They had ballers. They had Mane, like I said, Wanyama. They had Van Dijk. They had a list of players. And
Shaw, Schneiderlin.
they were in a similar position. Very similar position.
No, they went. Tell me their replacements. Who replaced Mane? Who replaced Schneiderlin?
Was it
Who replaced Shaw?
Nathan Redmond?
Who replaced Alderweireld? Who replaced Van Dijk? Please let me know. Tell me.
But you've checked yourself.
Yoshida.
Southampton didn't have that. Southampton didn't have that plan in motion, though.
You proved my point. You proved my point.
No, but
it's not that they didn't. But it's sometimes
Supply season demand.
Sometimes demand exceeds supply.
Yeah.
You can't replace them because it doesn't
I
exist.
understand that, but Brighton have already moved to replace those guys even before the problem occurs.
But what
Southampton didn't do that.
But at some
they waited
point-
for the problem to occur, then said,
That's
all right, we
not
need to
true.
replace these
And
guys.
at some
That's
point,
not true.
at
That
some
will not
point,
work.
the problem. So, for example, they
Yes.
might have planned for 2 man to leave and say, "Yeah, we know this man's gonna go, this man's gonna sell, whatever." They've done contracts on their own, but sometimes you got offer you can't refuse. Liverpool throwing 75 million at you for Van Dijk. You might have planned to sell him next year, but you're not turning down 75 million. Anything could happen. You could tear his ACL, blah blah. Sometimes you have to take the opportunity when it's there. You got to strike while the iron is hot. At those times, is the opportunity that you've planned for going to be available to take? Not necessarily.
Can I tell you something?
That's what I'm saying to you.
Even in that example you just read just there, like, you do realise that Arsenal offered Brighton 80 million for Caicedo in January.
Yeah, I didn't take it.
And they said no.
Cool.
They could have sold him for that price, a club of Brighton's stature. Why would you turn down 80 million?
Because they knew they can get more.
You guys are going to get more.
I don't know. I don't personally think it was that. It was because they were on a well, they said it's because we're on a run to try and get into Europe, which shows their ambition as a
But
club.
I think, but no, and I agree. But I think they're not going to say publicly, "We know we can get more."
Also, I don't think it was that.
and I think they knew. Hold on, hear me out.
No, if the offer comes in the
Brighton
summer,
was fighting for Champions League at the time, you know.
if the offer comes in the summer, they probably take it.
Yeah.
It's like I said, opportunity.
Yeah, probably
pick
So
it
in
this
January, they're saying, "Yo, like same thing with Southampton. We're not selling Lavia in January because we're trying to stay in the league. But if these men come in, we have to sell him now because next year, even though City could come back with a 40 mil, if you give us 35 mil now and we can sell him, we're taking it. Because
And the other thing is, if you look at like Southampton's situation, they would have like relegation clauses in contracts, which changes the prices of players. So that's why I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that if I'm Brighton and I have Caicedo and you offer me 80 million in January, halfway through the season, first of all, I'm not selling him because halfway through the season, but I'll also know, and you'll have on your radar, they'll know in the summer other teams are gonna have bread, and this starts a bidding war.
It wasn't. I don't think it was based on the.
I don't think it's based on that. I'm saying that's a part of it.
In the same vein, they saw Trossard. Whatever, the Zerbi and Trossard fell out, but Trossard could have stayed on the bench.
Okay, but his value would have depreciated.
Yeah.
They got good bread for Trossard. Was it not 27 million?
Yeah,
they got good money for him. If he sits on the bench for 3 months, you're not getting 27 million for a player like that. You're going to get 15.
But I don't think it was just based on money.